lot many times the products are created in vacuum and it is in the engineer's mindset. As a CISO who have been in the service, I try to bridge that gap saying like, hey, there's a problem, now there is a solution, and that solution is aligned with how the buyers perceive the problem.
Being a CISO, you are often wired to reduce risk, and now being a VC, you're actually investing in risk.
When you are a CISO, you look at the things from running the programs, running the policies, so on and so forth. As a VC, we do look at the risk from people and the ideas.
What makes a VC that has come from the CISO background so different than someone who's investing in security without having the CISO role?
As a design partner, we helped a lot of the startups to create the solution to our problems. The VCs is the same way. As a VC, you try to go further left and see like, hey, how can we bring the security community along to identify the problem, not just validate.
What kind of founders really stand out to you?
It is that combination of being coachable, but at the same time, that determination.
If I am a founder in the security space right now or wanting to be one, what is that one actionable thing that I should do that would help me to better approach the VC community?
One is,
in this episode, I was joined by someone who's lived both sides of security, Sajan Gautam. He's built and ran security at Arvest Bank and then made his jump into venture, supporting early stage founders at Momo VC. What I love about Sajan is how clearly he sees the shift happening in that industry right now. CISOs aren't just defending anymore, they're building. So in this episode, we talked about risk, judgment, and why more and more security leaders are stepping into the creator seat. Let's get into it then. Sajan, great to have you here. You've had such a fantastic career. Like, you've been leading security at many organizations, and you were a CISO recently, and now you have your own VC firm. You're a general partner there. You've turned your journey from from the boardroom to actually helping the founders or backing them to support or build what's next. I just want to start with one simple question: what drove that shift from the boardroom to venture?
thank you, Prasen. Great to be here. In fact, it started at the bank itself, at the several banks, but the last one, as a CISO, I had an opportunity to refresh a lot of the old legacy products to the new one. I changed more than 70% of the products and went with the startups because in reality, startups were solving the problems not solved by the legacy products. So in that process, I got to be a designer working with the design partners with these startups, and that helped us solve the problems. So that is how this started.
A lot of people know you in the security community and also in the VC community. But for those who are not familiar with Sajan yet, please go and look him up. He's been like a CISO, a security leader, and now like a VC, and he brings like a really new perspective over how to support founders to build what's coming for them. And I am going to learn a lot from this conversation. I think mainly we're going to discuss how to overall, the VCs look at your venture in the security space and how some of the CISOs are actually transitioning from being the head of security to being somebody who want to build like the new version of security products. So I'm really excited to do this, Sajan. Thank you so much for being here. For those who don't know you just yet, as a human being as well, would you like to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. So on the personal side, I was always a builder, kind of tinkering with the things, trying to figure out how to solve the problems. So that took me from security engineer, security administrator, database engineer, to even the risk management. Because I started in the technology and then went to college to get my MBA in finance, because there were so many things that you needed to have the risk mindset to solve it. So if you think about it, I was always chasing the problem to be solved. So in a way, I'm a problem solver. And that's why I am now into the venture capital world, exactly because of that. Because if I'm a VC, I can put myself in front to solve the problem in the design phase as well.
And it's quite interesting, right? Like being a CISO, you are often wired to reduce risk. And now being a VC, you're actually investing in risk. How do you reconcile these two worlds right now?
In a way, it's a both risk management, right? Because as a CISO, you are trying to manage the risk. You cannot eliminate the risk at all. Just managing to a certain risk tolerance level. And as a VC, it is almost the same, because you are still managing the risk and then getting the outcome of the upside of the risk, right? So you do take the best bet. A little bit of different is when you are a CISO, you look at the things from running the programs, running the policies, being compliant with certain rules, so on and so forth. As a VC, we do look at the risk from people and the idea. So we bet on the people and ideas, especially because we are in the early stage. So in a way, it is not much different. It is just where you get involved. Because as a CISO, you are a lot many times you are a consumer of the product. As a VC, you are a designer or builder of the product.
And what makes like a VC that has come from the CISO background so different than someone who's investing in security without having the CISO role?
Because we have been in the front and center for a lot of the problems that needed to be solved, right? Because a lot many times we were problem validators, and as a design partner, we helped a lot of the startups to create the solution to our problems. The VCs is the same way, right? Because as a CISO or as a security practitioner, you try to validate the problems. As a VC, you try to go further left and see, like, hey, how can we bring the security community along to identify the problem, not just validate, but identify the problem and go from there.
So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. But what is fundamentally different in terms of the thinking? Like how would a VC who's had a CISO background will help the founder to think differently or act differently? Are you looking more at the value propositions? Are you looking more at the market? How are you helping the startups to grow? Essentially, which is a little bit different than the rest of the crew.
Yeah, it's all right. Because first is bringing the practitioner view or operator view to the VC community or the startup, right? And a lot many times what happens is startups come up with the ideas or great ideas to solve the problem. But the problem and the solution is not really validated by the buyer or the community itself. As a CISO who have been in the shoes, or the security practitioner who have been in the shoes of buyer, we can say like, hey, this problem exists and I am willing to buy the product if that problem is solved. A lot many times the products are created in vacuum, not all the time, but a lot many times in vacuum, and it is in the designer's mindset or the engineer's mindset, the problem exists. But that problem is not really articulated in the way the buyer wants it. So I try to bridge that gap saying like, hey, there's a problem. Now there is a solution, and that solution is aligned with how the buyers perceive the problem. And in some cases, there is educational opportunities on both sides, right? Because sometimes the security practitioners learn from the founders, and the other time the founders learn from the security practitioners. So it is a loop process, which is very good for the outcome.
For those who are actually tuned in right now, like in terms of the entrepreneur community, right? Let's try to help them a little bit. You have this VC firm called Momo VC, which is an interesting name, by the way. I would love to know
Oh,
what
thank you.
more about the story and if you can shed some light. But what kind of founders really stand out to you, Sajan? Like, how do you work with these founders? What is the process? And like, if I were an entrepreneur or like someone who's interested in like reaching out to a VC, what kind of things should I be concerned about?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'll cover the first question first about how did we come up with the name Momo VCs, right? Momo means for a lot of Nepalese and a lot of the other communities, it's a feeling of home, right? Wherever they do go, they feel like home. We want the founders to feel at home with us. So that is one. And another is if you think about momos, dumpling, goeza, and all, it is different ingredients brought together, wrapped in for a yummy outcome. That's exactly what we want to do. We want to bring in different skill sets and package it together for a yummy outcome. So that is the premise behind the name Momo VC. Now, how what we look for in the investors are, I mean, the founders are the go-to mindset or kind of that doggedness to solve the problem and coachable, right? Because especially in the early stage, when you start on the problem, you have to be able to pivot and change your direction. But at the same time, you need to have that conviction to move forward even when the things do not go right in the first goal. So it is that combination of being coachable, but at the same time, that determination, that is what we look for.
I think thank you for starting a firm that is more personal or actually more approachable than a lot of the other things that are out there in the market. I have been working with you also for some time now, and I think that kind of like drove me to engage with you even more. Any like insight or anything that you would like to share about when we met for the first time and you heard about Aksari or overall our value proposition, like what you felt different or how you actually and maybe that kind of experience or that kind of insight would help other founders to also take that approach with you.
A lot of the founders or a lot of the founders or the products are solving the security operations problem, right? So if you look at the EDR, SOC, SIEM, a lot of those are the operation aspect of it. But if you look into the security organizations, there are so many administrative work involved, right? If you think about your compliance, your reporting, your regulatory calendars, your board reporting, a whole lot of things, or management of the budget, those take up significant time from security leaders. But not a whole lot of products are addressing that. That is what I find interesting with Axari, right? Trying to look into that almost like a chief of staff role to automate the administrative tasks. That's I find it very interesting, and that is much needed. Because if you ask any security leader about how much time do they spend in this type of administrative work, significant, right? And I'm not simply talking about security leaders. You can ask the same with other risk leaders, right? You can ask CTO, you can ask CIO. they do spend so much time on addressing this administrative task, and that could be automated, that could be orchestrated. So that's what I do find very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, Sajan. I think that's the overall operating security as a business is something that we're targeting really well with the overall AI staff concept and turning the rhythm into the staff as well. So thank you for that. Any other insights you want to give to the entrepreneurs about like what drove you towards us in terms of like the team aspects? Like, is there anything that you looked for that you found interesting and that other people can learn from? Maybe.
Yeah, there's a first is like trying to understand. I mean, again, I may be repeating it here a little bit. Trying to understand the core problem and be able to learn from the practitioner, right? Because telling somebody versus trying to learn from others, or maybe doing it in a combination, right? Telling somebody, educating others, and also learning from others. I find that very interesting in an approach that you are taking.
I've read this about you. You mentioned that context over capital. And like some places I've seen you mentioning this quote. What does that actually mean to you as an investor?
Yeah, because a lot many time founders or who are not in the founder's shoes, they just say like, oh, the VCs, they do write the check. But the VCs or the investors do more than that, right? They want to understand the context. They want to provide the contextual help, not simply capital. So that's the exactly the philosophy that we espouse. We try to say like, hey, if we are getting involved with any startups, we are all in. We are not simply doing this spray and pray method. A lot of people say like this is a power law. I try to make it like spray and pray. It's the same thing, right? But we try to say like we want to understand the context and get involved only with those founders where we can add value. If we cannot add value to that founding team, we do not want to get involved. So that's what I mean by context over capital.
And you've been part of this life after CISO movement, Sajan. And I'm also seeing a lot of CISOs moving towards being investors or advisors. Could you tell me a little bit about like why that's happening and what does it mean to like this movement life after CISO?
Yeah, it's a again. I mean, to make it like in an easier concept, it's a shifting left, right? Because CISOs and all they try to solve the problem. But a lot many times, CISOs, security leaders, they do get involved very late into the game when the product is already built and all. But if you become an investor or a VC, you do get involved in the very early stage, in the product design, funding, all those things. One can become a founder in one organization. So let's say as a security leader, I could go and found a company, one company. But in that case, I'm solving just one problem or one set of problem, right? But if I'm an investor, I can participate in multiple of the companies, multiple of the startups, and solve multiple problems, right? Because if I had seen just one problem to be solved, I would have just gone to one startup and started solving that problem. But we do see multiple problems to be solved in the security domain. Uh, that is why a lot of the other security leaders are also moving into the VC world.
Got it. I think what you mean by that maybe is more along the lines of like you get frustrated as CISO many times with what you deal with. And I think you just want to like go out there and like help someone understand your frustration a bit more and solve that particular problem. Whether it is to do with like managing security as a business, or it could be a specific part of like AI SOC, or it could be vulnerability management, or things that you've struggled with over a longer period of time, right? You want to actually go out there and build like solid value propositions, not just like a monetary aspect of it, but actually the value proposition that would help a lot more CISO community, right, in the future. I think that's kind of like what it boils down to, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, if you think about a lot of the security leaders, they come from the technical background. They are engineers at heart, or they are builder at heart, right? All of us, most of us are. So we wanted to solve that problem in the very beginning, but there are so many problems to be solved, right? There are not just one or two technical problems. So one way to do that is being involved in the writing the check part, right? That way you can get involved in multiple problems.
Maybe like one last question, Sajan, I have for you is, if I am a founder in the security space right now, or wanting to be one, what is that one actionable thing that I should do maybe this week, this month, that would help me to better approach the VC community?
One is identify the problems, start with like what is the problem that you are trying to solve, and then validate that problem with potential buyers before you approach the VCs as much possible, right? Because a lot many times the problem might be in the founder's head, but the market has not realized that problem, right? It's always the market wins, it's not the founders, right? So if the market has not realized that problem, the opportunity is either you change it or you change the market. Otherwise, it is very hard. So that would be one piece of advice.
Awesome, Sajan. Well, that was really cool. I think you gave us a really good insight into how, especially CISOs as VCs think. It's kind of like an inside the mind of a CISO VC, I would say. And thank you for like helping us to be on the journey of like from boardroom to builders to ventures, right? A lot of the entrepreneurs would get like great insights from what you just talked about. And yeah, always a pleasure chatting with you. And thank you for being on the show.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Prashin. Keep building. The industry needs what you are building.
Every time I talk to Sajan, I am reminded how much CISOs actually carry and how much potential they have when they get the space to think instead of just firefighting. Sajan, thank you so much for being here and sharing your journey. And for everyone watching, this is what the next chapter of security leadership looks like. See you in the next one.